It's been a journey. It's been a journey because I'd get to a race start where uh, people look at you and you hear the comments. Ah, shame is the how's he gonna do it? That type of a thing. Then you start running. Then we start climbing. I think whenever I get a chance to climb on a race, I make sure that I go all out because that's my strong point. And I leave them a bit and they realize like, okay, this guy's really here to run.
Hello and welcome to this very special episode of SuperSport Unplugged, especially because today we're focusing on Disability Awareness Month. And today on SuperSport Unplugged, I am blessed to actually have the likes of Crazy Legs himself, Ipeleng Khunou, and of course an award-winning filmmaker and actor, Calvin Ratladi. These are real champions today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through.
Tato, hello.
It is a pleasure to have you, Calvin.
Thank you very much, Tato, for inviting us.
I am honored. Now, Calvin, let me start with you. When it comes to being an award-winning filmmaker and actor, where did it really start for you? Can you elaborate where your story started?
Oh, it's a tricky one. I think storytelling for me found me in a time where I didn't even know or even have an idea that it's a language for something. I just felt like it's literally how life is. And if I remember correctly, it started from me just watching TV and being interested in writing stories, and not just stories, but also falling in the love of literature and just reading for fun. And little did I know that it's going to turn out into something that I'm going to do for a living.
Well, listen, you do it very well, award winner, real champion. Ipeleng,
Tato.
I met you in 2018, and fast forward to 2025, London Marathon, Totak, Two Oceans Marathon, easy just. But, Ipeleng, for you to then decide that I want to run, where did that start for you?
Yo, Tato, I was super overweight at some point. Like, I don't think Kelvin would have fitted into this chair. Yeah, so that's when I decided, like, listen, I need to do something, about my weight. And yeah, I started running. I think it was around 2016. And from there on, I was in love. Yeah.
But Calvin and Ipeleng, you are elaborating something that, it was just simple love and so forth. And I think because of Disability Awareness Month, a lot of people would be thinking, as differently abled people, some of these dreams seem unattainable. What made you know that it was attainable for you?
Tato, I think the advantage that I have is the noise that I've always converted, because I think growing up, being different, you've always had to convince the other person that you fit into their space, So for me, I think I grew up in that environment where, I've always felt I can fit in if I just show a person how I fit in. So I think that's how, I pushed my way into the running thing.
I really like what you've said, the no's I have converted. Calvin, how many no's did you have to convert to be an award winner? I wish I could Lady Awards Bonakin.
Firstly, it's a tricky one because as much as I'm an actor, very much visible on screen, it's something that I really didn't go out and say, now I want to be an actor. I've always been very much interested in the behind the scenes, the writing, the directing, the producing. And it was interesting for me when this opportunity of Shaka Ilembe came about, because I had to also sit a lot at myself, and I've rejected the role for 3 years.
What?
Yes, that's how long the conversation started. And at some point, I read the script. I was like, no, I don't want this role based on this. And I started also looking into what does it mean and what it will also perpetuate if I do it in the way that I received it initially. And it became a conversation. Also, I had to also come to a realization that who is existing living with disability, Calvin, who has really studied drama and can go on and act. And I realized that I'm also, to a certain extent, a benchmark on coming into representation and visibility for people living with disability who studied drama. And one of the reasons I literally took on the role was that. And at the same time, I knew that taking the role was going to be challenging because a lot of people look at me as Umzulu. And honestly speaking, I'm actually bad. I had to take like a bit of a course for me to actually really.
Wazulu?
But also at the same time, I had to look into the techniques that I learned in varsity for me to really be this convincing. So I went beyond just people thinking that I am Zulu. I had to also honor the tribe of the Zulu people and really do justice to who Goloza might have been if was really existing.
And don't you find then, Calvin, that you get boxed into certain roles, and they a lot of perhaps when you get roles that are suggested to you, it's only one kind of role, and nobody actually tries to challenge you as a differently able person?
It happened once, and I've said no to the role, and I told them that unfortunately, I refuse to go on screen, especially as someone who's sick, and later on you're not doing anything to the role. That really says a lot. Because me perpetuating that stereotype says a lot. People living with disabilities are already associated with certain connotations. And part of it for me is to also challenge those stereotypes. So yeah, it's quite a tricky one because also for me as an artist, I feel like I don't want to do roles that feel like they're too close to me. I really still want to go in and given something that you are watching and you are feeling and feeling every texture of the artistry.
You know, you mentioned a very important word. I'm going to hop on that again, stereotypes. And because it is Disability Awareness Month, I feel that the world sometimes does not see you as a differently abled person who's able to do a lot of things, like run marathons and so forth. Having to actually, when you meet people for the first time, get over that first stereotype and say, hi, I'm Ipeleng, I'm really cool. And having people not really look at you in that way, I wouldn't know how it feels, but how did you manage to get to where you are today, Ipeleng, where people actually see Ipeleng for who Ipeleng is?
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey because I'd get to a race start where people look at you and you hear the comments, shame, how's he gonna do it, that type of a thing. Then you start running, then we start climbing. I think whenever I get a chance to climb on a race, I make sure that I go all out because that's my strong point, and I leave them a bit, and they realize like, okay, this guy's really here to run. So I think for me, it's honestly been something where you almost feel like you need to convince people that you also fit in. It's wrong to think about it that way, but it's one way that I choose to advocate on, to say like, listen, I'm here to teach. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And when it comes to the marathons that you've done, I mean, when I met you, you were still trying to prepare for, what race were you preparing for?
2 Oceans Half.
2 Oceans Half.
Yeah.
What marathons do you still need to do? What's on your bucket list, Ipeleng's bucket list? Because I must catch up and actually try and do some of those.
Yeah, Tato, at the moment, my goal is to complete the ABBA global marathons. Obviously, the plan with those is to run coaching clinics for children on crutches, obviously to try and make what I do into a Paralympic sport, Yeah.
And how's that journey going, Ipeleng? Do you find that brands, the world actually understands what you want to do? Are people coming on board with this wonderful idea that you have?
It's, I think corporate people are excited to see what I want to do. From the schools, they are better unsure because now it's that thing of, but why would you want to learn children how to run on crutches, whereas crutches are expensive, they break and so many times and so on. So there's a bit of reluctance, but I think it's just a matter of being comfortable. And also, I think internationally, yeah, there's an appetite for what I want to do. I mean, we starting a Strava account for runners on crutches. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice. And Calvin, do you also feel that in your world you have to go above and beyond quite a lot of times to make people aware of other people like yourself, children especially, like Ipeleng's talking about now, that he's trying to put running on crutches on Strava, where you then have to think outside the box for everyone within your space?
Yes, I've been involved in a project called A Gathering in a Better World, where I was a curator. And it was interesting enough because I didn't receive any funding from South Africa except in Germany.
No.
And one of the things about the project I was running was mainstreaming disability within the arts sector. And I went all out to find artists who went mostly to varsity. People, it's shocking how many people exist out there. You find people with PhDs who are filmmakers, people who have written music and worked with some of the biggest names in this country, like your Zoe Modiga, your Tansa Mazwa, who are living with disability, who are blind, but also working within these universities in this country. And when working on this project, I learned so much from them, their resilience, but at the same time, it's so interesting that when you are seated alone and working so hard alone, you think that there's no other people. And it was interesting for me to bring everyone into the room, surely with funding, because that also takes funding, but also to inspire the younger generation who are really trying to exist within the arts, that look, as much as there's no much visibility of people living with disability on our screens, on the music scene and what, here are people who are really change makers behind some of the big names that this country actually embraces.
That sounds like such a dope project, Calvin. Do you think this project needs to be reinstated? Is it still ongoing? And obviously, I'm asking this because I'm a bit disappointed that South Africans didn't really want to come and fund this.
It's a project I did last year, and I'm glad one institution, the Market Theatre, did embrace
Beautiful.
it by giving me facility to really launch and create this world. And at the moment, I'm still getting out there to do it hopefully next year, because part of the plan was not also to do it in one place, is to move it across provinces every year so that people don't feel entitled that, oh, it's a Gauteng project. I'd love it to be in KZN and Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Eastern Cape. Every year we know that we are going to different spaces and also to touch on different people every time. So it's a project I'm still really working on a lot. And the great thing is there's a whole branding that already was done that exists. So it's not like we are starting from scratch. And there's a documentary that also we created when doing this project, which I'm still planning to submit for international festivals. And I would like us, when we do the second iteration, to launch that documentary before I actually submit it in other spaces.
Oh, wow. I'm so proud of you. This is a clock it moment. Clock it. clock it. Now, you know, Calvin and Ipeleng, we are living in a space and time where mental health is also a big talking point. And when it comes to being differently abled as a child, having to grow up in this world, I would assume that you really have to have mental tenacity to navigate this kind of world. Is that an issue that becomes a big talking point, especially in a differently abled kind of world?
Yeah, I mean, part of what I do, the running with the children and so on, is also get the parents involved. One of the things that I do is I volunteer at the Tshwane Rehab Hospital, where it's mainly people that have acquired disabilities due to injuries and so on. And for me, it's very important, to reach the families and change that mindset, on how they can then, accept their family members, or if it's a family that have got a child that's living with a disability, it's very important for me to try and help the family to accept that child, because I was lucky enough that I had an amazing mother who just, made sure that
Who's gonna call us now?
yeah, who can call anytime, but she made sure that, listen, I was the kid with the most toys, which hindsight made sure that I was the most popular kid, so everyone came to play with me. Yeah.
And I think that's also a social ill that we have as a continent, as a world, where some families really don't understand how to, I suppose, treat their children, don't understand it, and they find it to be a challenge. Do you find that there are more parents who really struggle with this, and that also in turn makes it very difficult for the children to actually handle their different abilities?
Yeah, I think it starts all from the communities, because often the children are nervous because of how will the community react towards them having this child who's got different needs and so on. So I think often the community that needs that changing, that needs to often happen and so on. Yeah.
Calvin, Ipeleng speaking about how he's always had to have more toys so that the kids can come play with him. Do you find that when you walk into a space, you have to be overtly, expressive, or do you find that you have to be quiet because you're not sure about the reception that people are going to give you? I mean, I know I get shy sometimes, or I talk a lot just so no one can see I'm shy. But do you find that you have to approach society just a little bit differently in new spaces?
I think at this moment in time, it depends on the spaces, but most of the time, I try not to be over-expressive. That's one thing I try to shy away from. I always tell people I'm one of the most introvert people who's existing. Just because of my work is there in the public, sometimes I even try not to be out so that I can really sit with my energy, because I really love sitting in myself and really going into my thoughts and think about how do we go forward as people. But one thing I try to do, I think I've shifted so much in maybe 2019 when I went on stage for more than an hour alone to just act on a story which was commissioned again in Germany, just to act alone. I think from there, my energy just shifted, and not to seek any approval or any validation, yes, for myself. And I think that feeling on its own gave me a lot of sense of content and fulfillment that to this day I'm still holding on.
Oh, wow. Super thespian you are. Now, when it comes to the industry we're in, sports, arts and culture, right? There are many places where you still walk around and you're like, but how's a differently able person supposed to enter the space where there is no ramp for a wheelchair? And that's just a simple example. How then do we make sports and entertainment more inclusive? Make people actually realize, in your perspective, where you've seen where, here man guys, how man.
It's a tough space, and I think personally I've decided to be patient because I think I've decided to, instead of, being angry that, oh, all of a sudden now at the race they use cups instead of sachets.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something
I
where...
remember they were going green. They didn't want the sachets everywhere.
Yeah, so, but now that's a problem because I can't drink water because with a sachet I would grab it with my mouth and suck. Now I need a support runner. So I think it has gone to a point where, I've started to educate the race directors. I mean, for instance, next year I want races to have children with disabilities. So I'm giving them my experience, and I've decided to go the more collaborative route where, screaming and all that, it's nice, but I think dialogue is better than, it's better than that, where you educate them and you'll find that people are more receptive when they understand why I need a support runner to run with me,
And how can the film theatre world be more inclusive to differently able people, Calvin?
Firstly, access is a big conversation, especially around film. And also film, it's a space that has been overused as this world that works with looks, and people living with disabilities have been reduced so much around their looks. And it's a big, as Ipeleng also says, it's a big dialogue, it's a big conversation on how do we work around and challenge also us as people. It's not like we don't know that people living with disabilities exist, but when you watch our normal day-to-day TV, that representation is hardly seen.
Yeah.
And that on its own is quite... creates an illusion that is non-existent. And I think access, education, and also a bit of funding also to really go and create programs for parents, especially in the rural spaces, also is very important. It's so interesting to go into parts of this country that are very much rural and find that it's very hard also to just use a wheelchair around, and that also gives people not access to be in any space as they want. If there's a cultural group somewhere or what, the person living with disability might struggle or might be viewed or seen a certain way. So, yeah, I think access, education, and funding are the thing that we need to really invest in and look into.
You mentioned rural areas, Calvin, and something just popped in my mind now that we also do live in a South Africa, Ipeleng as well, where a lot of people who are differently abled and in situations and families where there is no education, people don't know, we also then face the problem of abuse, neglect of differently abled people. Have you experienced or seen people being treated like that? And how do you feel as a differently able person? You come from a good home, but there are people out there who are neglected and left to themselves, not looked after.
Yeah.
I
mean, my mom, I think, probably faced that stigma growing me, when I was growing up, because then she was being told that, she's supposed to drop me over the church missionary, where my mom decided to go the physio route, to say, I'm going to try and help him get the best possible schools. I mean, when I first went to a multiracial school, the drama in the family where they were like, now, I'm lucky enough that I can laugh about it, because we saw it as not having education. We saw it as the family not being exposed enough, but I was lucky enough that I was pushed. I was pushed. I had an awesome mother who, like, wanted me to be a child, not a child with disability. So I think that's the type of uh, encouragement that I saw from her, and that also gave me confidence to be the best that I could be. You know.
And Calvin, what I've just asked Ipeleng, have you experienced it and seen that, especially when you say you go to the rural areas?
Yes.
And people just don't know how. They either take them to church missions, but not actually looking at the problem. Sometimes they also just don't have money.
Yeah. I think with me, I've hardly seen it because I've grown up in quite a secluded place deep in the mines of Witbank in Malahleni. So it was a small town, and surely, as far as I remember, someone living with disability was either me and one other person. And both of us, I think, to a certain extent, we had parents who had somehow understanding a bit of education to really navigate themselves around our disability. But at the same time, I think with me, what's different is the fact that my mom studied early childhood development. So that on its own, I think it's one of the things when I look back is it was just a blessing because I really went in deep. My early childhood development was quite solid, and to an extent that the siblings that came after me was very hard on my mom that why are you not doing this with this one? Why are you not doing this because you did it with me? And for me, I think that on its own helped a lot, and it prepared her even before I was even born to really navigate her motherhood around me.
Oh, wow. And Calvin, just to go back to you, with regards to differently able people and disability, I do find that people, society, sometimes maybe they're shy, maybe they don't want to offend, but they hardly ever ask about what kind of disability you have. What challenges do you face? What would you like people to know about Calvin and how you are differently abled?
Okay. Firstly, let me just say what kind of disability I have. I have a condition called kyphoscoliosis, which is mostly a curvature of the spine. It affects a bit of mobility, but not much with me. And I think also because of I've been quite physical with drama, getting into understanding a bit of yoga and also acrobatics, and that on its own makes you at least a bit fit, and also understanding how to navigate yourself with your body. For me, if I were to say, I think usually they say access needs. My access needs are very rare, are quite, it's mostly just lifting heavy stuff. But otherwise, I'm very good. I've traveled alone, pushed bags to international spaces and stuff. So mostly it's just lifting those things, heavy loads. But otherwise, I've learned to really navigating myself in this world.
And I find it quite funny that we are so deep into the conversation. Only now I ask you. What would you like people to know about your disability, Ipeleng?
Yeah, obviously, I was born without balance. So I've literally had to learn standing up and like just doing the normal thing. I have to put more emphasis on, focusing on my left and right. Because for me, whenever, let's say we're driving with somebody and they say, which side are we turning? I have to feel my heart off and say, okay, left. Because that's how difficult it is. I don't have coordination. So it is something that I'm still learning. I mean, only last year did I learn to walk backwards, and each time when I'm home I do it, my mother is like, oh, so which is something for me, it's a massive achievement, being able to walk backwards. So for me, It's been an interesting one, whereas I don't see it as a disability. It's just things that you can't do. And I think doing sport and doing the stuff that I do with my physios and so on, I've actually improved. Whereas normally with people, who are differently able, their health can start to regress. So with
Yes.
me, I've started only, I'm only getting better, which I'm grateful for, the medical team and the guys that, look after me in terms of my running.
Now, you speaking medically, I'm thinking chelet. You speaking running, your crutches chelet. Chelet. It does become expensive at some point in time. Can you elaborate the finances?
Whew. Yeah. One thing that a conversation is never had with disability is just how expensive it can be. I mean, my crutches cost 20 grand, whereas normal crutches would probably cost 200 rand. So just that on its own, it's a bit expensive. And, I need the so-called, whole lot of people always think, no, I'm spoiled. Why do I run with carbon fibers? Because carbon fiber shoes are like the elite shoes, right?
Yeah.
So with me, I need to run with carbon fiber shoes so that they can help me straighten out how I run. Otherwise, I can't run. So it's not a thing of me wanting the freshest sneakers,
Hot.
No, it's about, for me, those shoes actually help me in terms of how I run and so on. So, I would say it's quite expensive, having special needs and so on. So it would be nice if, corporates could really pour money into the arts and also in sports, for persons with disability, because for us, when I do javelin or so on, I need an extra chair, I need an extra bag, I need an extra thing to help me go further, which is often the difference between being talented and not making it because you didn't just have the right chair.
So, even going through that journey, Ipeleng, when you started running and you trying this out, having to discover who no man, all times I mean, sharp. In Castamega Air Force One, I must actually get going through that journey
Yeah.
and finally discovering that, oh wait, and getting people to actually help you and
Yeah.
assist you with that. How was it?
Luckily I've got a big mouth. My mouth went a long way. My mouth really went a long way because I started knocking. I think soon as I ran the 2018 Two Oceans, I knew that I wanted this to make this into a sport. So I contacted a whole lot of high performance centers and so on to say, I'd like to be your protege. I'd like to be your project and so on. And most of them were quite, were willing to take me on and so on. So it's been, I think, if I didn't have such a big mouth, it would have probably been a bit more difficult. But I think once you talk, people are willing to listen to you and find solutions.
And Calvin, Ipeleng talking about having a big mouth. We're in a beautiful pod VOD today. It's going to go everywhere. Social media is now a big thing. Yeah. Do you find that because the world has changed, people are more perceptive, people are more understanding, you've got a wider audience to elaborate and express yourself more, especially now in the age of social media? Or is it still more a bit abusive also on the other side?
I think generally social media has the good side and the bad side. And the bad side sometimes is very much a lot. But one thing I know and I've realized, and also coming into space, like being on TV, I've received so many messages from mothers, cousins, friends, a whole lot of people who have really came to my DMs and really thanked me for really going into bringing that visibility. And I know for them it's like, oh, you are strong, you are courageous, and what. For me, I saw it as another opportunity for me to balancing my sheets at work.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just another accounting job. And for them, it was a big moment. And at the same time, I had to understand what also mainstream television and film does to people's mindset. And that's what I usually take on And I'm like, yeah, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a big, huge responsibility because also you need to look into how you portray yourself going forward. But luckily, I think issues of representation are issues that I'm very passionate about, not only for disability but also for blackness on its own.
I actually want to know, Calvin, are you, when we started this conversation, you said you said no to that role for quite a couple of times.
Yes.
Are you now, as you sit back, receptive of all the praise and well wishes that everybody is giving you? Are you now receptive to the role that you play, even though now you've got such a huge responsibility, so many people looking at you? Can you, as Calvin Ratladi, now see hore, angisebenzile?
Looking at the work that I've done, I think one thing about going into that production that I've done just brought me so close to my spirituality also. Just brought me so much close to respecting people's cultures and traditions also. Because I didn't only have to act this role on Shaga, I had to literally belong to the tribe for that time and moment. I had to travel into 1700s and make people believe that this human being was alive. But this is not just any human being. This is a human being that was very clear from beginning that Goloza never existed. This is creative license. This is fiction. And he's going to exist amongst these big names in history. At some time, I was very scared about how this can be translated in 100 years' time. Because people can believe that Goloza was actually existing. And platforms like this, I think, also are a good space for me also to say, look, there were people living with disabilities who might have been born as kings but ended up not being kings. But we use that creative license for that narrative specifically to tell the story. But the truth is that's fiction. And it's important for us to contextualize and also to say why it was done. And part of that has been a conversation that I brought into the production. Because initially also when I read the script, I felt there was a lot of approach from a more Western gaze, and I had to challenge that gaze if I was going to come into the production and also be realistic that this is 1700s in Africa, somewhere in Natal.
Wow, you're giving me so much insight. I'm going to have to literally go and rewatch because it's beautiful how you elaborate all the work you've had to do to actually correctly portray this character. When it comes to other characters that you sit now as Calvin and say, oh, like, I want to play this role. I want to play this role. What kind of roles would you still like to play? What kind of pieces would you like to be a part of when it comes to being a thespian?
I'd love to play roles that are very much showing another side of me, and also being someone who also is in academia. I think we don't show people living with disabilities a lot as people who have studied, who have went to school, who are also nation builders and at the same time contribute to economy. I think it's very important for that image to start coming up on our screens. And I'm looking forward to such stories for me to tell, but surely with a bit of drama and complexities. And I think that's one thing I really, really wish this country also could open up itself to. Otherwise, I am writing that for myself if they are not going to write it for me.
I'm going to help you write it. Rom-com, drama,
Oh, yes.
comedy. Which is your favorite genre?
Let's go for rom-com.
Oh, hey.
because it's challenging to the viewers.
Yes, it is.
It is very challenging. So I think something like that for me, we need to really challenge how we view people living with disabilities. There are people who've been on in the space. I think the name is Errol Ndoto, if I'm not mistaken, in space with a wheelchair, and many people have not even dreamt that far.
I didn't even know that.
And I think we need to start opening up ourselves to a world out there. And these are people who are working as lawyers within the UN organizations and stuff, who are staying just here in South Africa. And I think it's important for us to start really knowing that people living with disabilities are not people who just gonna receive SASA.
Sasa. Ipeleng, I actually asked Calvin about, are you able to be receptive for the role that you have to play in this world? The role that you have to play for a lot of young kids who are not confident enough, who did not have a mom like you, kids who are sitting out there feeling hopeless. Have you taken on that role? How do you receive that? Because
Yeah. I think, for me it's been much more easier. I'm not getting any younger, so at some point, we need to start preparing the next generation. Because remember, for me, as much as I will probably never run at the Paralympics, but I would like to see children running a 100-meter dash on crutches, So you can't just sit back and relax and say, oh, that's the status quo.
You'll never run go Paralympics, Ipeleng.
Only football age, right? And it starts catching up with you.
Mare, football age is a root thing. No,
No, it will show. It will show. Kere kapa ball over ramar. Something is wrong there. Hadidumeli. Yeah.
Okay, so Calvin was talking about 1700 Goloza today, and 20 years from now, 30 years from now, how would you like the world to look for differently abled people?
Yeah, I think I would like to see a world that is more designed for everyone to fit in, because I think there's this myth that once you say universal access, it's almost seen as saying that then people living with disability can fit in, but people forget that we grow old, and at some point you might need a wheelchair, to move around. I mean, so if we create a world that is more inclusive, then everyone fits in, then you don't have to make special arrangements. So for me, with what I'm doing, I would like the main thing is to have an inclusive world.
An inclusive world. But also for yourself, Ipeleng, when you think legacy, one day you've got Kelvin there, he's written a beautiful role with Ipeleng in it. What kind of legacy would you love to leave in the world, Ipeleng?
Yeah, like I said, for me, I would love to see Africa being more appreciative towards persons with disability, whether it's albinism and so on. I would like to see a world where those people are celebrated as human, There's this thing where I always tell people that right now, I'm not a big fan of being on screen. Contrary
to popular belief and now.
I know that right now this is work that I need to do. I need to promote, inclusion. So for me, the idea that people see me on screen, it's actually got to do more with people being able to see me with my disability and being able to say, oh, we have a child like that. Let's give him a chance and not lock him in the house. So that's what I normally strive for.
And Calvin, for you, Calvin's legacy, Calvin Ratladi. Have I read description?
Firstly, as Ipeleng was saying, he mentioned two words, but I understood them from a different space because I've been really investing in looking into in these notions, Africa and disability. One of the things I know about Africa is that we have a violent history around disability. I think the legacy I would love to leave is for us to challenge that violence. Everything we think about when it comes to disability doesn't bring a smile. It doesn't. And I think it's time we really invest in that smile as Africans. I think it's time as Africans we start opening ourselves up to realities of the world. I think it's time we need to start just gathering in a better world. I love that title so much. Yes, I know it's a title of a project I've done and I've curated, but I think it carries so much about what can be viewed as a legacy.
I really like what you've said there, Calvin, where a world where we approach and look at differently abled people and disability with a smile and not the violent history that it's had. And I think another word I'm going to take away from today that I'm going to use in my everyday life is converting no's. Thank you, Ipeleng, Virginia's you. But our gentle brother, my wonderful, wonderful souls, it has been so wonderful chilling with you. Please don't be strangers. We don't get like a boreha moids. We
Are
don't
you
get
gonna
them.
run?
Anyway, that is our episode of SuperSport Unplugged. I am not being challenged by Ipeleng. Ipeleng, I'm there to be your support during the marathons. It has been such an honor and a pleasure to have our real champions joining us on SuperSport Unplugged. Do make sure to catch these two on your screen or at a theatre near you.